So today I want to talk about this ongoing theme of social media and why it sucks and how you need to avoid some of the toxic elements of it. Today I want to talk about avoiding social media's toxic mirror. And it really is an invisible thief. It's a parasite. And I want you to think about something right now. When was the last time that you looked at social media and actually felt better about yourself afterwards? What do you think about this? What was that? The last time you scrolled through Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and came away thinking, wow, yeah, I feel so fulfilled and content with my life right now. More likely than not, you scrolled for about 10 minutes, walked away feeling a number of things behind in your career, not fit enough, not successful enough, not happy enough, not well traveled enough, not enlightened enough, not living your best life. Everyone else apparently is. Apparently, it's an awkward term here. This is the comparison trap. This is the invisible thief that's stealing your peace, your presence, and your authentic self worth. And here's what's happening: you are constantly measuring yourself against curated highlight reels, filtered perfection, and carefully crafted narratives. And your brain, which has evolved to assess relative status in a tribe of about 150 people total, is now comparing you to billions of people 24/7. And the result is a chronic state of not enoughness that drives anxiety, it drives depression, and it drives a desperate search for a really pernicious evil, which is external validation. And here's what's more insidious, I think, is that the comparison doesn't stop when you put your phone down. It infiltrates your meditation, your health journey, your relationships, even your spiritual development. You start to compare your anxiety to someone else who is apparently calm, your body to some fitness influencer who's 30 years younger than you, your progress to other people, maybe even in this community, your insights to teachers and gurus who spent 30, 40, 50 years sitting on their butts, not having to pay your bills and do your life, and your life circumstances to everyone else's that's been curated as a narrative. And I tell you, I know these folks. They don't just stand up and record life. They rehearse it. They take multiple takes. They have makeup. They have filters. It's not real. Today, we're going to work on understanding why comparison is hardwired, but how social media makes it toxic. And I want you to realize the real cost of living in this comparison trap. And hopefully, we can walk away with a couple practical tools to break free from this. This way, you can reclaim your authentic self worth, which is rooted in your own experience, not your observation of these people. So you can use social media without it using you, and you can witness others' success without diminishing your own worth so that you could be genuinely happy for others if that's indeed their life, good for them. Well, most importantly, being content with your own journey. So there are some deep studies in psychology around this. The guys who famously studied with BJ Fogg at the behavior clinic in Stanford and went off and started Instagram. This wasn't just an app. This was based on decades of behavioral study on addictive circuitry. So why your brain compares? Let me explain why this is so difficult to escape in the first place. We have evolutionary programming for millennia. Your survival depended on knowing your place in the social hierarchy. And this Social comparison. Think of the Animal Planet Monkeys edition where you watch how the monkeys fight and compete for status, right? This helped you identify who has the resources, who has the status, and where do I fit? And your brain is hardwired to constantly assess, am I doing better or worse than those around me? This worked when there was a tribe of 50 to 150 people and everyone kind of fell into their place and everyone relied on each other in a codependent circle of human need. You knew people's full story, not just the highlights. And their status was relatively stable. That guy's a hunter, she's a gatherer, that's a mom right now, right? And so the comparison served a genuine survival purpose. But now, with a tribe of billions of people, you only see these curated highlights and filtered realities. If they're real at all, half of it's AI now. The status is performance based and constantly shifting. This comparison, it serves no survival purpose. It generates anxiety. And social media amplifies this. Social media doesn't create the comparison, it weaponizes the comparison. And the goal of this algorithm is to keep you scrolling because the attention equals profit, right? We've talked about this plenty. The attention economy needs your eyeballs to ring the cash register. That's how they sell your eyeballs to advertisers. They will show you content that triggers an emotional response because now you're hooked. And then they've learned very early on in the game that comparison and envy are highly engaged emotions. This means your insecurity is monetizable. What you're actually seeing is maybe the top 1% of someone's life and the other 99% is hidden. Trust me, I know these people. I know what their real lives are like. It's highly filtered, highly edited, carefully curated in what they're saying, how they're saying it. They're using a lot of NLP to trick you into falling into their words. And they have professional content creation assembled around this. This is their business. And a lot of it is ads disguised as authentic life. And there's just no authentic context of struggle. The illusion really is that everyone else has it figured out and they're doing better. They're more enlightened. They're living more authentically. They're better than you. They're crushing it. They're winning. But the reality is everyone is struggling. Everyone's on a journey. Everyone carefully curates what they share, lest they look real and vulnerable in this space that is completely fake. This comparison spiral has a lot of neuroscience behind it. Here's what happens to your brain. You have a comparison trigger. You see somebody else's success, you see their bikini body, you see their life, you see their achievement, you see their kids that are doing better than yours, whatever. Your brain automatically compares it to your own. That's how we're wired. And this happens in milliseconds. It's mostly unconscious. Then we have a second step, which is called the status threat response. If you perceive yourself as less than, your amygdala activates. Your brain, it literally interprets this as a threat to your survival. Cortisol, stress hormones release. And this is the same response that you get with physical danger. This is the same response that you get making your brain not work as well and making you store fat. It's a stress response. This is emotionally, psychologically triggered. And then you get into step 3, which we'll call negative affect cascading. This is when the emotions arise, particularly envy, inadequacy, shame, anxiety. And then there's thoughts that follow this. Oh man, I'm not good enough. I'm behind. I'll never catch up. And then your nervous system enters sympathetic activation. We've talked about this for weeks now. And with this sympathetic activation, your neuroception goes online and you don't feel safe. So now, step 4, which is where the cash register rings for those guys, is the compulsive checking. To resolve the discomfort, you seek either validation, so you post something and check your likes, comparison continuation, which is you keep scrolling to find someone worse off than you, and or a combo of the two. But this creates dopamine driven feedback loop saying, I got to look, did someone respond? What did they say? And then the spiral on the fifth step starts to deepen. The more you compare, the more your brain looks for comparisons. And then you have confirmation bias kicking in. So you notice all the evidence now that you're behind. And your baseline state becomes chronic inadequacy. And this creates a huge psychological pit that you're in. But the cortisol, the stuff that we just talked about, creates an inflammatory connection. And this stress state triggers some of the same inflammatory cascade we talked about with anxiety. It literally makes you sick. And you don't feel well mentally, emotionally, or physically. And there's something for our community I want to mention here is then there's a lot of spiritual bypassing trapping that happens here. So you could do a spiritual comparison. You would say, oh, well, they're more awakened than me. Their meditation practice is deeper. They've healed their trauma. I haven't. They're living more authentically. They obviously have more money, so they could do those things. And it creates a really toxic paradox. When you're using spiritual practices to escape ego, but then comparing your progress and feeding your very ego that you're trying to transcend, it's a trap. So here's what it steals from you. It steals your present moment. Every moment spent comparing is a moment of not being here, not experiencing your actual life, the real one that you're supposed to be living right now, not noticing what's beautiful right now. Maybe you're projecting onto others instead of sensing yourself. And your practice just falls to shit. You can't develop interoceptive awareness while constantly looking outward for validation. You can't be present in your body while living in an imagined realm of comparisons. So when you're constantly measuring against others, you adopt their goals instead of discovering yours. Do you really need six pack abs? Do you really need a bikini body like that? Who said so? You follow their path instead of forging yours, right? You're basically going, okay, well, I'm just going to do what they did. And so then you start optimizing for external metrics instead of your internal alignment. And you miss the lessons. Your specific journey is the teaching. So you end up living someone else's life and you end up pursuing someone else's definition of success and becoming someone else's version. And this poisons our connection to our community. You can't genuinely celebrate others' wins when you feel behind. You withhold your vulnerability because you can't let them see you struggling. They're all faking it. They're all posers. You can't let them know that you're behind because then you're going to be ridiculed. It's like childlike shame. And then instead of being collaborative, you become competitive. Instead of connecting, you try to perform. And then you're suspicious of authentic sharing because you assume everyone's faking it. And what does this do? It creates isolation, doesn't it? The very time you most need community support, comparison makes you hide and withdraw. The chronic stress of comparison, psychologically, it beats you up. It elevates your cortisol. It increases inflammatory markers, disrupts your sleep architecture. It weakens your immune system. And it gives you all sorts of digestive issues because your gut brain axis is disrupted. Psychologically, you have anxiety, you have depression, these things skyrocket. Decreased life satisfaction, even with improved circumstances. You have an inability to enjoy what you have. And you have this thing called imposter syndrome, the perfectionism, or bedfellows that are toxic psychologically in every way you can imagine. It leads to body dysmorphia, disordered eating, Every 30 minutes, this is research that is all over the place. Like, I can get you the studies. Every 30 minutes of social media use correlates with increased depression and anxiety. Heavy users, like 3 hours a day, have a 3 times higher rate of depression than minimal users doing this. Your mental energy gets spent on comparison. It's unavailable for creativity, problem solving, presence, the stuff in your life garden. You're not watering your plants, are you? And you have a ton of emotional energy spent on envy, which is disgusting. Disgusting is an emotion, and inadequacy, which drains your vitality. And the stress response also zaps your physical energy. The cortisol levels and the inflammation, you're pooped. You literally can't pursue your actual goals in your life guarding while constantly measuring against others. Remember, we talked about identity limitations. This comparison, it reinforces your limiting identity. I'm not the type of person who fill in the blanks because look at them. They are whatever they are. I can't because they can and I can't measure up. I'll never be fill in the blanks because that gap feels insurmountable as you look at the fake feed of the person who's also not there. And this comparison, it becomes evidence that proves your limiting beliefs to be true. It's this paradox of inspiration. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm just looking for inspiration. But notice what actually happens. Do you feel motivated and empowered after and behind? True inspiration elevates, it energizes. Comparison depletes, but it discourages. The test is if you close the app feeling worse than when you opened it, that wasn't inspiration. That was comparison poisoning. So every time there's a little practice, you open social media before scrolling, just take 3 breaths, notice your current state. I'm not saying don't go on social media. I say it to my kids. I can't say it to you. You're grown adults. Take 3 breaths, notice your current state. And then during scrolling, notice when comparison arises, because it will. And then after scrolling, check in. Am I better or worse than before? Be honest with yourself in tracking this. How many times did this comparison arise? What triggered it? How did your body feel? Use your introspection to really map out what you felt. And then what thoughts followed? Because the insight from this is most people discover they never feel better after scrolling. They only feel worse. This awareness alone, it could begin to break the addiction. And then I am a strong, staunch advocate for ruthless curation. Everything you do, every account you follow should pass this test. Keep it if it makes you feel genuinely inspired. If you're looking at flower arrangements or recipes, fine. Keep it if it teaches you something useful, makes you laugh. It brings genuine joy, and it represents real relationships you want to maintain. And then unfollow or mute anything that triggers this comparison, this inadequacy, anything that makes you feel less than, is aspirational, but makes you feel worse. That's a dead giveaway. And anything that represents who you should be rather than who you are, stop shooting on yourself. And also, is someone who barely knows you or you know, and it's a life that you're envious of. I invite you to be ruthless about this. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Stop giving it to people who make you feel bad about yourself. And a big thing on this is just do a 100-day digital fast option. Consider cutting out all social media and just pressing reset for 100 days. Everyone feels better after 2 weeks. When you catch yourself stepping out of that, you get your life back. And if you're already in this comparison hell, use this protocol, if you will. Whoa, I'm comparing myself to Nancy about skiing. Say, well, what am I actually feeling here? It's usually inadequacy, envy, fear, or one of the bads, right? And what am I afraid this comparison means about me? What need is this pointing to? and then redirect it to something interoceptive. So place your hand on your heart or your belly, take 3 conscious breaths, and you ask more important questions. What does my body need right now? What does my life need right now? What is my next right action? And that shift from external comparison to internal guidance is huge because your worth isn't comparative, it's intrinsic. And so check in on that. What matters to me today? What are my values? What's going on in my body? Start noting those things down and be patient with yourself because these are the things that step in and help you reclaim your light, your time, the water for your flowers in your garden, your actual life over someone else's curated one that you're trying to compare to. This is a great act of rebellion in the age of comparison. Being genuinely content with who you are, where you are, while continuing to grow at your own pace. You don't need to be better than anyone. You just need to be more yourself and then grow yourself. Take something you heard today, take action on it. I promise you, I've never given this advice to someone who's listened and have them not come back and say, hey, thanks, I'm back. Somebody wants you back. There's no one immediately standing for that in your life. Let me stand for you here. I'm back. Okay, I actually have a hard out at 3:30, and if you just walked into this a little late, something with the AWS outage makes my speaker isn't working, so I couldn't hear you all anyways. There's one thing in the chat. I don't give medical advice here. I have more group limited friends. Coach up for a few minutes and jump off. Yeah, the idea of connecting with people online is wonderful. We're doing that now. The idea of seeking validation through feeds is a different beast. There's a lot of beautiful things that happen online. Death scrolling isn't one of them. Brain rot isn't one of them. Okay. I'll see you all next week. If I see you sooner, it means I saw you at the retreat. Looking forward to it.